wait, what? Oh, sorry about that. Okay, someone just pointed out that we were recording for a lot, but then I guess I paused. Well, we're recording again now. Sorry, I could have. So we missed at least one thing we missed one explanation. I apologize. I mean, oh, and I didn't even put in the PDF. Well, I guess there's nothing I can do about that now, but yes, we're recording again now. Oh yeah. How did that happen? Well, anyway, so we're going to pause again for any, and if you're just doing the practice exam now, if you're just using the time to do, and you're not seeing questions, that's fine. But just don't be doing nothing else. I mean, don't be doing, you know what I'm saying? And I'm going to pause one more time. And then if there aren't questions, but again, those of you whose hands are up, I appreciate it. We won't do this all the time, but I'm going to say to anybody else, please put your hands up if you're part of this class at all right now. If you're even here at all, or you know what's going on, even if you're not doing it, if you know what is happening right now, if you hear me talking, please, thank you. That's good. Okay, thank you. Oh, and then there's a question from, okay, Group's question is a good one. Thank you, Angela. Okay, so there's one. All right, now now it's down to one person. So now it's just, or is it two? Wait. So please put your hand up if you hear me speaking at all. Okay. Well, now we're like, wait, why does it keep flipping back? Okay, now it's down to one person. So that's just meanness on my part. So now you can take your hand. All right, now you can all put your hands down. Thank you for that. And there's a question in the chat, which I will answer now. And then we will. So thank you. You've all been very indulgent. I just hope, just please, if nothing else, get them rock this exam. Okay, please. Like it doesn't escape me that we've now spent 2 weeks. I'm kind of just like trying to give you a chance to really rock it. You know, instead of like doing new material, like I'm all for that if it means you rock it. But please, again, just remember, I'm going to say this one more time. There is a question in the chat. I'm going to answer it. But just remember one thing. This whole system of letting you work together, letting you take it home, giving you a practice exam, is it all because like I'm a sucker and a nice guy? Well, partly I'm a sucker and a nice guy, but partly also, please remember, and is it partly because I'm tired and I've been doing this for sure, but largely, please remember, and I'm not saying this to scare anybody. I'm really not, especially not in this particular class. The point is not to scare anybody, but let me just tell you that even with an exam that is take home, that is open world, which this is, and which for which we give you time to work through a practice exam and give you advanced leads. Just so you know, even with that, generally in most classes, we still end up getting a bell curve that centers around a mean of 71. I'm serious. Like, I mean, I'm saying it is actually still possible to not do well on an exam like this. That's why we keep doing it. I mean, that's almost weird, right? But it's true. And part of that is because the way I grade it, I'm looking for authentic understanding. I'm not looking for correct answers. I know I've said it a million times. I'm going to just say it one more time to plead with you. We're giving you all this time because we actually want you to understand the physics and show that on the exam. We don't want just answers. We want it to be a presentation, a document that you're proud of, that now at this point, because you've had like 2 weeks to in effect do rough drafts on a document that's very similar, by the time you give me something, it's a final copy. It's like an essay. It's a presentation, a poster with diagrams and colors and neat handwriting and space. You're making it as easy and appealing to me to read as possible. One last way I'm going to put this is I'm nervous because I've got 4 different classes and I've got 5 different classes actually that all exams coming in like this all at the same time. They're huge, they're long, they're actually really hard to grade properly, to be sitting there and looking at whether you actually know what you're doing or not is actually the goal. So what you want to do for me and for yourself in order to get an A and to get it back in any reasonable amount of time, you want to blow me away. You want to give me a document that's like, here, dude, here is your physics. It is clear. Like, I might not know all the physics in the world, but this physics that we've been talking about endlessly for weeks, this physics I know, and I'm going to show you because I'm going to do it my way with my colors, my handwriting, my footnote annotation style, blah, blah, blah. You get, right? Please rock this exam and make it so that I feel like it was worth it that we have all these periods doing it like this. Okay, that's what I'm just saying. Now, there's a question in the chat. Will lab 6 material be on the exam? If labs, and it's funny you asked that, because if lab 6 means the one you just did 2 days ago with Moses about electricity, I assume, and you might want to, oh, God, what did I miss? Wait, we are recording now, right? Yeah. Wait, sorry, back up. There is a thing in the direct chat of, can you please record the lecture? Yeah, I'm so I got that. I mean, we were recording it. We missed one thing for some reason, and I totally apologize. There's no way I can go back now and retro record that. I don't think. But we are recording now, and I'm so sorry. The one thing you missed was the whole thing about relativity and the Doppler effect. And the big plug of all of that was, please go rewatch the video from 2 weeks ago and or get the PDF from 2 weeks. I mean, it's all in Google Classroom. That speech about how Galileo's principle of relativity and the motion of the Earth ultimately relates to the Doppler effect. That was my point that you missed on the recording. That's recorded 2 weeks ago. Okay. And maybe person who's asking me that, please let me know. I mean, please accept my apologies and let me know if that's clear in the direct chat. But the person who's asking about lab 6, is lab 6 the one you just did 2 days ago about electrostatics? Is that correct? Yes. Okay. So that is not on this exam, for good or for bad. Like that's the material that we do next. That's certainly on the final exam. It's where the rest of the course goes. It's not on this exam. And for that reason, and now I'm going to be really honest again, or blunt again, because I think I said that at the beginning of this period. I'm not saying this to shame anybody, but I think I tried to make that as clear as possible at the beginning of this period. And hopefully the practice exam makes it clear, like nowhere in the practice exam is there any electricity. You can trust the practice exam. Am I going to tweak it somewhat for your real exam? Yes, I'm going to tweak it somewhat. I might even make it shorter or you have to pay attention and see where it's a little bit different, but there's not going to be some totally new problem that you've never heard of. There's not going to be some new topic that you've never heard of. There's not going to be anything added to it. It's just going to be tweaked and possibly shortened. Therefore, but since I feel like I've said that, and since I feel like I said at the beginning, the fact that you're asking right now, what that means to me is this is still a dangerously confusing enough thing that therefore, in 2 more minutes, if there aren't any, or in 3 more minutes, if there aren't any more questions about this document, I'm not going to take the risk to try to do a bit of electricity discussion here, which was my original plan. I was going to move on to the new material and try to clarify what you did on Tuesday. I was going to do that for the last 40 minutes, but I don't want to do that because I don't want to confuse anybody into thinking that that's part of the exam and then getting their studying all messed up or whatever. Okay. So the only thing that's on the exam is where we're up to in lecture so far. So that means, and I hate to say this, so that's clear. Okay. So for good or for bad, what I'm saying right now is I'm going to wait like 5 minutes. Don't anybody go. I'm going to wait like 5 minutes, 6 minutes. And if there's no more questions, I should never say this, should I? You know what I'm about to say, though. I really think we should use this time this way, but in like 6 or 8 minutes, if there's really no more questions on the practice and you guys are really good and solid, or at least you're clear on the expectations and the contract of this, if that's the case, in 8 minutes, there's no more questions, we're going to shut down because I'm not going to do electricity now and confuse people or whatever. I won't. So I'm going to say I'm going to pause again for like 7 minutes. I'm saying 7 because that'll bring us to 5:10. And please just look at this. This is like last chance opportunity, whatever. If you have any questions, find them now. If you don't, we're all going to go in peace. I'm going to post this thing in 2 days, like we said. If you have last minute questions to text or email that are specific, I can answer before then. Once the thing is posted, I can't really answer questions unless you literally think there's an error in if there's something unclear in the exam. I could try to answer that, or that you think it might be a possible error. Sure, I want to hear that. But what we can't do once the exam is posted, the one thing I will not do. I mean, again, I am a sucker, I am a pushover, but I'm not stupid. So the thousands of different ways that people come up with to send me a text or an email that basically boils down to, can you look at what I've done so far and tell me if I'm on the right track? The answer is no. Okay. And like, please don't play the game of trying to come up with clever ways of saying that. Okay. So the exam, I think we said the exam will be posted no later than 8 p.m. Saturday. I think that's what we said at the beginning of this class, right? It might be a little earlier, might be, but it'll be no later than 8 p.m. Saturday, this Saturday. And then you have till Tuesday. I'm sorry. Then, wait, why are we doing that? Why are you giving that long? Well, I guess that's what we said. What? I don't know why I said that, actually. That is weird, but apparently that's what I said. The more I'm thinking about it, that is, well, that's what I said. So, I said that because Halloween you don't have, right. Okay. Anyway, it'll be posted no later than 8 p.m. Saturday. It's due, and this is the last thing I'm going to say this again. It is due before this class next Thursday. And here you've got to, I'm going to ask for the hands one more time. Yes, I'm a pushover in a million ways and all that, but there's some places where I'm not, and it's hard to predict those. So let me tell you right now, where I am strict, I'm not strict about homework deadlines. You know that. You can still be handing in old homeworks and getting more points. That's fine. With an exam, especially an exam like this, it has to come in on time. It has to come in on time, and you have to show up to class that day. That's part of the exam experience. Instead of having to sit for an exam, you're doing it at home. But that's technically the exam day is next Thursday. You have to show up for class, because otherwise your friends who show up for class and see you not here, whoever you are, see you not here, they wonder whether your exam is in or not yet. And then they think to themselves, I know Yabra, I'm such a pushover. That person's exam is probably not in yet, and probably nothing's going to happen to that person. So why didn't I do that? And the answer is, yes, it is. And good thing you didn't, because you do have to turn the thing in on time, which means by 3:05 next Thursday, and you have to show up to lab, even if you then fade out or something, or do whatever you do, like your colleagues have to see that you took this as seriously as they did. And you all have to know that if an exam doesn't come in on time, or you don't show up to class for that, and I don't know about it in advance, will I still read the exam? Yes. Will you fail the class? No. But definitely points will be taken off. There certainly are consequences if the exam doesn't come in on time. And the thing you got to do is, if you know anything's going to happen between now and next Thursday, if there's any reason to believe something's going to go awry and you're not going to get the exam, then you reach out and communicate to me. And we'll make some kind of arrangement. Depending on what the situation is, I'll be more or less accommodating, but it will certainly be much better for you than if it just doesn't come in and I didn't have any advance warning of that. Okay, that's enough on that. That's right. So it's due, yes, like Mohammed's saying in the thing, it's due next Thursday before 3:05. And that is really strict. It's like an exam thing. Okay, so I'm going to say, it's Josh. Yes, Josh, sorry.
So I know that a lot of times we are supposed to use the 5-step method, and a lot of the questions, it's just like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, whatever it may be. And there's so many different parts to it. Is it safe to say that I should just use the 5-step method for every one of those parts?
Right. Okay. So I think we addressed this one day that you weren't here, but yeah, it's a great question. And I think on like one of the videos I got, yeah. So here's the real
I've asked you before also. It's just sometimes like I even getting like homework back, you're like, use the 5-step method. I was like, okay, fine. Like I should have,
Right. No, right. It is there's no question. Right. When in doubt, always err on the side of the 5-step for sure. But yes, I understand what you're saying, that there are places in the exam that start getting very repetitive and exercisey, and it's that, and less so. I mean, certainly on those old things, I've tried to cut down on a lot of that, but you're definitely right that there are places where it starts looking less and less conducive to the 5-step. But here's my real best advice is, first of all, yeah, if it ever occurs to you, if there's any doubt in your mind, just go for the 5 steps. But more reasonably, where you really want to do the 5 steps is the most, like with the most vigilance, is 2 places. One, certainly any problem that does obviously look like a regular physics problem where it seems like it lends itself to that. But number 2, when you're at the beginning of anything, anytime you start a new problem, even if the first couple of parts of it seem very exercisey, right, even if like the A and the B, they seem repetitive or they seem small or whatever, once you're opening up to a new problem, absolutely there, stop and definitely set up the 5-step method. I'm talking to everybody now. Like Josh has raised this before, but it is a very important consideration to everybody, especially problems like in this exam where I say a bunch of stuff, but then I don't give you a diagram. Like the truth is most people tend to remember the 5-step thing if they see a diagram in an exam or a homework. But if they don't see an exam, if they don't see a diagram and it just starts looking like A, B, C, D, that's where it's easiest to either forget about the 5 steps or just to kind of think they don't apply. But my advice to all of you is when you start a new problem, even or especially if you don't see a picture there, you still want to remind yourself you want to present a picture because there isn't one. We need one. And you want to really go to town with the 5-step method as you set up your whole problem. Like, give me all the stuff, the step 1, the step 2, the step 3, like what the general definitions and principles are. Set it all up for that first exercise. Do it for the first exercise. And then if it starts getting, or when it starts getting repetitive and exercising from there, then you can absolutely start paring down and getting thinner and cutting toward. You could start saying like, C above for diagram, C above for diagram. Eventually, you can even say like for general definitions and principles, C above, they're the same, C above. And eventually, if it's really exercising, you can even stop doing that. Like the whole thing is you want to be assuming that I don't have anything to go by at all besides your document. Like I'm not even looking at the original questions because I'm not. I'm literally just looking at your document. So you want to go top heavy. Whenever a new idea is introduced in the test, you're now going to introduce that new idea with like bring everything to bear that you can, diagram, general definitions. Then when it starts getting repetitive, you can pare down as well. But so basically my long answer is go for when in doubt, do the 5-step method, but for sure, especially go top heavy on the method at the beginning of every big problem. Does that sort of make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense for sure. Also, in addition to that, let's say we do the 5-step method, and I know I've understood you want us to display our knowledge to the best of our ability. So when we have the 5-step method laid out, should we try to like what happens if we have the whole thing laid out and then we're like, oh, we want to add this, but it doesn't necessarily fit in any like little like area. So how should we go about adding it, making sure that we can actually display the amount of knowledge that we know?
Also a great question. So I sort of have 3, and really good question. Okay, I think I have sort of 3 answers for that. One is, when in doubt, when you're bringing like your larger knowledge, your larger comprehension, your larger analysis to bear on the problem, generally speaking, where that really fits is step 3. That's like my most concrete thing to say is generally speaking, the larger understanding, larger knowledge is just that. It's the general definitions and principles that you're like applying to the situation and you're sort of trying to set up and describe before you even get into the nitty gritty of like the algebra of the situation. So first of all, I would generally say that stuff best fits into step 3, number 1. Number 2, this is where, and don't take this the wrong, this is where I'm hoping with all this time that we have and stuff, that you or that people in general really do drafts of this and then a final copy. So part of the idea is you're drafting and then something occurs to you like all the way right at the last minute or something of a thing. So you write it out there. But now when you copy to the final copy, shift that up to step 3 where probably it belongs. So that's kind of what I'm saying too. But then finally, number 3, if all other things fail, if you're explaining stuff, and then you realize you're just solving stuff, and then you're like, I really want to explain this. Well, then, stop, like leave a bunch of space, and as though you're talking to me. It is a talky kind of thing. You can literally stop and write out like now, or put an asterisk or whatever up there and say now sidebar explanation of that asterisk above. Please note, or you could say like, yeah, please note, da 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 da. I mean, that's like your last resort, but if you think of this whole thing as a presentation rather than a quiz, you'll feel more freedom to do it as though you're talking to me, which is the idea. I mean, again, ideally, I would say, okay, but so, does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I was just gonna say, as it is a presentation, a lot of words are going to be used, and I'm going to write a lot of words. Do you want us to write those words in handwriting, or would you rather have those typed up and those actually so you can actually, maybe a little clearer if it's typed up?
Fair enough. Either way, I mean, sure, typing is ideal, but most of these things end up being handwriting. I'm perfectly fine with handwriting as long as, again, but consider like final draft hand, like as long as it's neat and clear, and especially with where I don't want type. I mean, typing is easier to read, sure, but what the problem with typing is that for a lot of people, once they're typing it, then it really reduces the amount of diagrams and math and like.
Right, that's also true.
Right,
that's why I was like on the fence.
Right. So if you're literally on the fence, if you are honestly on the fence, what I would say I'd rather have much more variegated thing that has your handwriting in it. If I had to choose, if you're on the fence, don't worry. It won't look irresponsible or it won't look irresponsible or whatever just because it's handwriting. Most of these things are handwriting. That's totally fine. But yeah, to the extent that you could do a draft first, that would be better. And to everybody, he's implying, I mean, Josh is implying there's going to be a lot of words in his exam. And oh yes, like if that wasn't, yes, words are really good. And ideally words that like have arrows that point to the math that's happening. I mean, words are great. And any exam that just comes in with a bunch of raw equations, just one after another, to all of you, like that's what signals, okay, that was a website that they just copied and pasted. Like the more words, the more it's going to be you, not a website. And that's what we want. So, I mean, these are very fair considerations. But did that answer
Yeah, that answers. And lastly, sorry. Because we're going to have to draw all these different arrows, and that's how I imagine mine is going to look like. I'm going to try for that. It could get really confusing really easily. So how will we know that like you're going to follow those same like mind processes?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's part of the challenge, is to have it be really rich and robust, but clear. So, I mean, again, that's where you do want to have it. I mean, you could have a lot of hours and stuff, but yeah, you want to make sure that. I don't know.
Do you have any advice in how to clear that up? Because I've done this before, just in general, like taking notes and whatever, and I'm all over the place, and I can't even necessarily read what it is because it's all over the place. So, like, do you have any like advice on to how to make it clearer? Unless you're saying do a draft and then do another draft and then do another draft.
I mean, I can't avoid. I mean, yes, draft is the ultimate thing, but I mean, I know that's not the whole thing you want to hear. My other advice is honestly, try to stick to either a 2 or possibly 3 column format. Like the tradition is that we have math equations in the center, math equations sort of line by line. And this may even sound obvious to you, but a lot of people, it's not obvious to a lot of people. Like every new math equation should be on its own line centered. So the tradition is you've got the math going in the center, and then off to a column, like a side column, you have the English running. I think that and some people have a third column, but I think honestly, if you're concerned about this at all, the best thing is like, well, I guess I'm saying 3 columns because the math is like in the center. But if you put the math in the center and you have the right column being the English that's explaining it while you go, and if you make an effort to skip a line or two after every sub part or after every idea, like if when in doubt, if you want to break in your thoughts at all, skip lines. Like one thing I can tell everybody is these things can be 50, they aren't usually, but it could be as long as you want. If that means that things are really spaced out nicely and not crammed together, which is a main thing. If you're worried about clarity of presentation and you're worried about how am I going to follow it, which you should be, when in doubt, space out more, space out more, space out more. Just have math in the center, have arrows going off to the side with the English, and even just leave, you could just leave the left blank just so it's easier on the eye, or you could put pictures in the left, like some people do that. But yeah, I mean, it is an issue making it clear on me. And so it works slightly differently for everybody, but and you know, but if nothing else, write big and write with a lot of spaces, if possible. But I think you'll, yeah, if you do draft it a bit first, it'll help a lot. I'll say to everybody too, if you're concerned about these things, I said this to the other class too. I don't mean to spend so much time talking about presentation, but it is worth, these questions are worth it, because yes, again, this is about presentation. Again, know that I know that you know that I know that you have all the answers already, right? Like, so what is it that I'm great? What am I looking for? Yeah, I'm looking for a well-presented slice of physics, but that means also if you do put your efforts into this, especially if at the beginning, if you're top heavy with really, if you err on the side of talking to me and bringing me into your thought process and really viewing it as, this is how I think about physics, this is how I understand it. If you err on that side and you show authentic comprehension, there's a lot more forgiveness for missing minus sign here or a double equal sign there, or even wrong answers. Really, the person who really gives me a document of authentic physics, but has a lot of wrong answers in it, or a lot of details got messed up, is actually going to do better than the person who has every detail correct, but it basically might as well have been just taken from Khan Academy or from my notes. That is the standard. I actually would like more honest wrongness than dishonest rightness. And the honesty is a subtle standard. Like, it means you're writing down what you understand, period. And just remember, okay, I'm going to say, okay, I know we're running. I've said this before too, but like, I know everybody thinks math and science are black and white, but they're not. Everybody thinks they're not everybody. Some people think math and science are just like a body of knowledge. It's not a body of knowledge. It's a language. It's a skill. Just imagine, all of you, imagine you were in Arabic class right now, or whatever, French class, Chinese class. Imagine you're in a Chinese class and you have an essay presentation assignment, which is like, write what you did for your summer vacation in Chinese, right? We all know at this point, you could go on Google Translate and you could get the characters and the equivalent characters for every word that you'd want to say. Of course, you could acquire the symbols for everything that you'd want to say in what I did for my summer vacation in Chinese. But honestly, we all know, if you have not become somewhat fluent in Chinese, no matter what you do in 2 weeks to get those symbols and put them in your document, a fluent Chinese professor can obviously know the difference. If, like, in reading your thing, of someone who's fluent in a language can tell whether they're talking to someone who's getting somewhat fluent, or at least trying to be conversant in that language or not. Think of it that way, like, not to scare anybody, but just to lift off of Josh's questions. Your goal in this thing is to have a physics conversation with me and convince me that you are getting somewhat conversant in physics, and just recognize that I am conversant in physics. I know the difference between a bunch of equations being copied and pasted together, even like if they are from different, even if they're from my notes, I know the difference. Just saying. All right, I'm going to stop. Can we point to? Oh, wow, great. Okay, two good questions here, and then we'll shut down because these are great. One person's asking, how long would it? Oh, this is public now. How long would it take to do in one sitting? That's a really good question. I would say, if you've already practiced, right? If you thought about this practice exam, ideally maybe done a draft or two, and then you're sitting down to do a final copy for me. Great. Like, you're trying to budget your time. I would say this exam, if you had to do the whole thing, which maybe you will, or maybe you won't, if you had to do the whole thing, the 10 pages, I would say it was originally written to be a full period in your, I would say 3 hours, for good or for bad. It's not a 75-minute exam. It was originally like a 2 hour 40. So I would say, to be conservative, like 3 hours. Now that's if you know, you've already done draft stuff, which is equivalent to having studied, right? So, but I would give yourself 3 hours to do this. You don't, I mean, again, there too, there are people that scrawl this out like an hour before class, and oh my God, like, and even if they know their physics or they have the right answers, it's so impossible to follow what they're doing. And it takes, you don't want to be the person that takes me more time to read yours than anybody else, unless it's because you're just so long and thorough, right? There's just like, I've got, so yeah, I would say 3 hours. That's an estimate. Obviously, every person is different, but I would say 3 hours. Now, okay, thank you. Now, when there's someone's asking in the chat, can you point to lab work as proof or explanation? Oh, talk about pro tip. Word up, like, yes. Now I sound like Jonathan from Queer Eye, but yes, yes, please do. I'll repeat the question. Can you point to anything you ever did in the lab as part of an explanation for something? Oh, I will be delighted if you do. Yes, please. Okay, thank you. Okay, I mean, I think these are, I will say again, now that I feel like I've been just a little bit negative, I mean, I don't take my negativity as negativity. The flip side of my negativity is I want you to know this is not a gift. It's a real thing. You probably will rock on it, most of you, and most of you really have been here and been with me. And often, this is the way I give exams in all classes, including 204 or whatever, like the higher, not high, even, you know, for the people that are majoring in it or like have calculate, like this is the way I do exams in all classes. And there's generally is a bell curve, blah, blah, blah. And sometimes people are surprised that they did worse than they thought. But the flip side is, I actually think you guys are going to do well. I think you have been here with me largely. I think Moses loves you guys. I mean, he knows you better, really, as human beings than I do at this point. I think you are in it to win it. I think you have every tool ready. And certainly, even if you know nothing right now, which is not true of any of you, within a week and a half, you're going to do this fine. So anything that I just said negative or scary sounding 5 minutes ago, the flip side of that is, when you do well on this thing, please don't assume that, I mean, please understand that means it's because you know and have learned some physics. If you can create a good document out of all this stuff, these are some sophisticated ideas that are meaningful in the world, that you're not born knowing. So if you could create a document that puts these ideas together and coherently defends and demonstrates these ideas, hopefully you'll stand back and look at it right before you hand it and you'll be like, whoa, that's a lot of physics right there. I mean, that's what I usually think when I look at your exams, like, whoa, that's a lot of physics right there. If you can do this exam well, which I think most of you will, it is not a gift. It's not a silver platter. It's not a joke. It's us being interested in you doing well. And so when you do, you've done something real well. Know that. Like, again, people are not born knowing this stuff. Okay. So I'm just saying that, and I have full confidence in you. So I think, unless there's any other questions now, I think we can end 20 minutes early. I mean, I'm good with that if you're good with that. Hands up if we're good to go. Okay, that's a Josh. Well, Josh is the only living soul right now. No, I don't mean that, but he's the only 3. So, okay, Takrub, thank you. Mohammed, thank you. Okay, all right, Michael, so everybody's good. Okay, again, you can text or email me if you have concrete questions, blah, blah, blah. You've all been great. I'm looking forward to... and you can even remind me Saturday morning if you want to be like, can you post that thing a couple hours earlier? Or might have, whatever. I don't know. Goodbye. Have a good, all right. Have a great weekend and stay safe. But I'm going to turn off the recording.